I'm going to hit record now. And just to introduce myself, I'm Jessica Smith and I work at VSAC for the Gear Up grant. And I just want to remind you that you're in the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics breakout room. I'm going to ask each of our presenters to introduce themselves. I'll call on them one at a time. And then after they introduce themselves, we can start having you ask questions. And the best way to do that is going to be in the chat. So first, I would like to have Jamie introduce himself.
Hi, Jamie Gravelin, project manager at BioTek. I work with a team. We design instrumentation for life sciences, mostly fluorescent microscopy devices, looking at live cells.
Thank you for explaining what that is, because I was going to say. Thanks, Jamie. And then Julian, will you introduce yourself next, please?
Certainly. Good morning, everybody. I'm Julian Leon. I'm an energy educator for VEEP, which is a Vermont energy education program. So basically, I'm the energy science guy who goes from school to do workshops on energy science with students.
Cool. Thank you. Anna Prescott, will you introduce yourself next, please?
Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Prescott. I am an Educator and Analyst at VSAC for the Outreach Department. So basically, I analyze data and sort of try to figure out, using data, how our outreach programs are working and how to make them better.
I don't know if it's happening for other folks. Anna, you're a little bit delayed, so I don't know if what's going on in your internet world, but it came through. Okay.
Okay.
Just to let you know. Katie, will you introduce yourself next, please?
Sure. My name is Katie Ferguson. I am a technical writer at a software company called Envestnet Tamarac. We make financial software, and I get to write the documents for how you use that software.
Cool. Thank you. So that is our panel, folks. And I'm wondering if anybody has any questions that they want to start off with, or I have some questions that I can get the conversation going with our panelists. I'll start with a question.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask each of you this question, and we'll go one at a time. So first question is, when you were in middle school, what did you think you wanted to do for a career? Were there any particular experiences, classes, or clubs that helped you prepare for your current role, or that sparked your initial interest in the field? So I'm actually going to put that question in the chat because it helps me to read questions when I am answering them. Is there anybody who would like to go first from our panel?
Sure, I can go.
Okay.
Yeah, I think early on, I kind of knew I was going to go into this field. I'm the 9th boy in our family, and I probably irritated my dad quite a bit I was very curious, and I used to tear things apart in our house, not always get back together. I'm dating myself here, but if you kids can imagine, my dad won an award one time at his office, and he got a calculator. And so that was my first view of a calculator back then. And the first thing I did was tear into it to see how that works. So let's see. Back in middle school, I also wanted to be a rock star. So yeah, I still play guitar, but I'm not a world famous rock star. But, as far as, can't recall too many clubs, but just always being curious about how things worked.
Cool. Thank you. Who would like to go next?
I can. In middle school, it's really tough to think about a career you're going to have, but I know kind of like Jamie, I had dream jobs that I thought, oh, I was a big fan of the NASA space missions. I used to follow them very closely. And when I was at school, it's probably about when the space shuttle program was starting to take off a little bit. So I wanted to be in that seat, in the controls, going up in the space shuttle. That would have been my dream job. But also, maybe I wanted to be a professional athlete, but I wasn't very good at athletic. So I decided, all right, maybe I'll try to do the space program thing. But again, just a dream job, but it was fun to, definitely fun to think about.
I can go next. I can say that when I was in middle school, I had no idea and really, really did not like the question of what I wanted to be when I grew up. I liked a lot of my classes. I thought some classes were boring, and it most seemed to depend on the teacher and how the class was run. So yeah, very little clue. I've always liked art, but that's not what I do for a living. Yeah, I had no idea. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer for a while. I thought about astronaut, but I never thought that was likely. I really didn't have any idea. Yep, no idea.
Oh, thanks, Anna. Sorry, I've
So
been,
myself,
yes, go ahead.
I can say I did not have any firm ideas, but I did know what I like to do for fun, which was reading. National Geographic isn't such a big deal anymore. But when I was a kid, my grandma would send us our National Geographic magazines when she was done with them, and I loved reading those. And so I aspired to write articles for National Geographic. Kind of a moonshot writing job. Now I know how challenging that would actually have been, but it sounded really cool to me at the time, something that let you be outdoors and active and still do writing stuff, which are things I was interested in.
Katie, we have a question in the chat that I'm gonna start with you on, is how long have you been doing the job that you're in?
That's a funny question. And so do you guys remember at the beginning of the talk this morning, she said, everybody thinks of a career path as like this straight line. And then she showed the picture of the like really windy, knotted up path. The reason I can't easily answer that question is because when I graduated from college, I got a degree in, first I tried English, and then I tried biology, and then I tried basically like an average of those two. But then I got a job doing like writing lab reports right out of college, and I really hated it. So then I did something totally different. I went into AmeriCorps. I taught bike classes, like how to ride your bike safely. And then I ended up doing finance stuff, and now I'm doing technical writing. And I've been doing my technical writing job for 4 years, but I basically had 1, 2, 3. This is my 4th job since I graduated from college. So hard to say.
Thanks, Katie. So let's go back through our panelists, and you can tell us how long you've been doing the job you've been doing. We'll come back to Jamie.
Sure. Let's see. I graduated with a double E degree. First, I went to Vermont Tech and got an associate degree. I actually wasn't all that good in school. Fairly decent in high school, but it wasn't until I got a UVM where I really started to shine there. So I got my electrical engineering degree there and did about 10 years of electrical engineering design and software. Now I've been doing project management for about 25 years now. So I've had stints in aerospace and semiconductor lithography, and now in life sciences. For many years, I've done about 4 startups. One I did some consulting, so I worked in a lot of small companies, and that's a really good exposure into knowing all aspects of business, and you get close to everything there. But for the past 10 years, I've been with BioTek and just focused on project management. So that's where, oh, I'm trying to remember what the rest of the question was, Julie. Sorry.
I think that was it. One of our participants wanted to know how long everyone's been at their job. Yep, that's great. Thank you.
Well, that would wrap me up then.
Julian.
So my current job with Veep has been just under 5 years, but teaching science, it's been about 25 years. I've been teaching science in a variety of different schools and in a variety of different countries. So like Jamie, I graduated college with degrees in mathematics and electrical engineering. And then I went to work as an electrical engineer, and the job I had, I just did not like. I didn't like it at all. I found it quite boring sitting behind a desk all day. So I decided to switch my career, and I went back to school for teaching. And then I got my teaching certificate and later my master's in education. So I've been working as a teacher ever since then. So current job, 5 years, in the field, about 25.
Thank you. Anna.
So I've been at this current job as an evaluation research analyst at VSAC for just over 3 years. But I've been in sort of the field of research and analysis and statistics and studying stuff for maybe 7 or 8 years before that. So I was a research assistant or a research fellow at the National Institutes of Mental Health for 2 years after college, where you get a lot of training and experience in doing research and working with data. After that, I went to graduate school for 5 years and did experimental social psychology. So I was learning how to design experiments and again, use a lot of statistics and math to human behavior. And then I worked teaching statistics at college for a year at different colleges, but those were temporary jobs. So I've been in a lot of different jobs and slightly different versions of research and math and experiments and stuff, but only this job for the last 3 years.
Cool. Thank you. That was a great question. So if anybody has more questions, please put them in the chat. But my next question, and we'll keep Anna on the screen, is what does a day in the life of your job look like?
My days are really variable. So I tend to have a lot of meetings. I'm kind of like a consultant in my job. I'm one of the only people who knows a lot about research and math and data. So if anybody on my team, like anybody who works in the outreach department, has a question about numbers or data, or maybe they want to give a survey to some students to learn something about how they're feeling right now doing remote work or something like that, they'll set up a meeting with me and be like, hey, we want to do this survey. What questions should we ask to get to this sort of information? And I'll help them figure out what questions are going to get that information for them. And then I'll analyze the data on a different day when the questions come out or when the data comes back. So I have meetings like that. Sometimes we have meetings about problems with our data system where maybe something isn't working right and we have to figure out what's going wrong and how to fix it. And then I try to block out chunks of time to work on bigger projects. Like I need to analyze a data set and write a report. So I call them Science Friday. I try to set aside most of each Friday to work on deeper projects that really require to kind of focus in on one thing instead of jumping from project to project. So some days I'm really focused on one project, and some days I'm kind of in different meetings and answering emails. And normally, when it's not, work from home COVID time, normally I sometimes go into schools and present results of survey to teachers. Or even a couple times a year, I go to national conferences in different places. So my days can look really different, and that's one thing that I really like about this job. I have some control over my schedule. As long as that's scheduled for a meeting, I can sort of figure out what works for me to do at different times during the day.
Thanks, Anna. Okay, we will start. We'll go back through the line. So Julian, what does a day in the life of your job look like? And you can compare it to COVID and pre-COVID if you want to.
Yeah, I'll talk about pre-COVID. So my day was slightly varied. There was not a set day that I was going to have the same thing, but my days could probably be broken up into outreach and equipment prep days, and then teaching classroom days. So my outreach days, I'd be on the computer communicating with teachers, finding out what workshop they'd like me to bring, how many students I'm going to be working with, what was the focus of their particular curriculum moment. And then I go into my lodge and make sure all my equipment is ready and packed up in big tubs for me to take to schools. And then teaching days, I get up early and I load my van with wind turbines and solar panels and fans and all kinds of things I'll be using with the students. Go to the school, check in, unload my equipment, set it up on tables. The students come in, we workshop. Maybe I'll do 2-3 classes in a day. I'll pack everything up at night, nice and neat, hopefully for the next time, and pack that back up in my van and go back. So a little more travel on those days. But yeah, basically communicating with teachers, making sure my equipment is good, and working in classrooms with that equipment.
Cool. Katie.
So I live just outside the Seattle area, and one big difference, I used to live in New England, so I can compare it for a minute. One big difference between the New England area and the Seattle area is there's no like countryside in the Seattle area. It's just all a big, long, endless sprawl of development. And so I live in one of the developments outside Seattle, and I work right in downtown. So my day starts with getting on a bus and riding my bus for an hour to get to my office, which was on the 13th floor of the 76-story tallest building in downtown Seattle. It's pretty awesome. You could go up to the 76th floor and look out, and you can see everything. It's amazing. On a regular day, I am responsible for kind of managing my own schedule a lot. So I come in, and the way that my company works is we update our software every 6 to 8 weeks. And it's my job to find out what is changing in the software in that time, and then learn about how that new change works, and then write it down in our help center. And then when that release, it's called a release, when they put all the new stuff out to the public. When that happens, I stay and I put out my new documentation to go with it. So most of my day I spend in the office on the computer doing research, but I also, it's a mix of research into what is this new feature, as well as talking with software developers. I spend a lot of time working very closely with people who are actually writing the software, as well as a lot of project managers who are in charge of writing down kind of like what the feature should look like, how it should behave in what's called a spec, a specification. I spend a lot of time reading those specs. So my job is really a lot of a mix of independent research and collaboration with the people who are actually building the new features. So I can go, like, I would like, you know, walk around, go talk to people. If I have a question, I'll go find the PM, I'll go find the developer, or there's another job called quality assurance. And the quality assurance people check to make sure everything is working right, and they find problems with the new feature. So I'll talk to them, they know how things work really well. And then once I've kind of gathered all that information, I take some time and I just start really writing it down and figuring out how to best communicate it. I also work really closely with a team who makes like online videos that are training videos about how our software works. So it's a I work really closely with them because they're always finding out like, what are the new features? What do we have to put in our videos? And I'll be like, oh, let me tell you what I've learned. And they'll tell me what they've learned. So it's a lot of surprisingly close collaboration, as well as a certain amount of kind of working by myself. And then at the end of the day, I get on my bike and I ride 20 miles back home in the rain, in the dark, most likely.
Nice.
Thanks. Jamie, what does a day in the life of your job look like?
Oh, thanks, Jessica. Just back to Katie. I lived a year in Portland, Oregon, so I know the rainy feeling. But there's some beautiful days out there as well. My typical day kind of varies by the phase of the project I'm in. So early on, we do what's called feasibility, and then we start working on the program plans and budgets and schedules. That's with marketing is basically my customer. So they define what they want, and as Keith said, we make specifications and sign those off. So we get the whole plan laid out in the beginning, and then we transition into the design phase, and that's where I get to work with all the different departments in engineering, the mechanical, electrical, software, and the validation folks. So as the designs come together, we plan to make a lot of prototypes for everyone to test with. We make quite a few these days. Like on the current project, we've made 14 full instruments for everyone. So that's a job in itself, just to coordinate getting all that material together and get those built up. And about that point, the validation folks start up. That's where we define the plans on how we're going to confirm that the product meets specifications and has proper margins. Then as we get farther along and the testing starts to wrap up, I start focusing on the manufacturing, working with them to make sure the lines are set up properly and the service folks are prepared for their service manuals. And then we start to focus on getting demos built. A lot of logistics there. A lot of my day is basically checking in with all those different groups, making sure one's on pin, they don't have any obstructions into getting their job. I have a weekly meetings typically with the team, and let's see, I work with the validate folks closely because they tend to get hung up on things that aren't working properly, and they don't really sometimes have the full expertise to understand why. So I have to always work with the design folks and validation and get those coordinated. Big logistics, just getting materials. Some of the parts have 20-week lead times, and molded parts take months to get. And when they come in wrong, you got to scramble and figure out another backup plan. So, I just want to say I'm fortunate. I do love my job. I love this kind of work. I think it's just something I really like to do. I like to see something come from a piece of paper into a fully working product. Right now, we're on fast tracks with a lot of our projects. So this current one is taken from start to finish 12 months and about $5 million, and we'll have a new product. So a lot of fun. I really enjoy it, and I got a great team that I work with. So
thank you, panelists. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep asking questions unless anyone writes something in the chat. Oh, here we go. This is an excellent question coming in on the chat. We'll keep you on, Jamie. What is your favorite part of your job, and what is the least favorite part of your job?
I think going back to what I said, that my favorite part is just watching how something comes from a piece of paper and all of a sudden 60 people are focused on bringing this thing to life, and it's just fun to watch. My least favorite is got to be the risk reports. Those are the most boring things to write, and they have to be extensive, and I believe no one ever reads them, but they're required. Oh, but just to define what a risk report is, I have to identify any component that might fail that might lead to a false but believable result on a patient sample or something. Important, but a lot of work. They tend to be a few hundred pages plus spreadsheets, so not a glorious part of the job.
Whoa. Yeah, and I'll just say, participants, if you have any follow-up questions, you can also put those in the chat, but we'll just keep moving through questions with each panelist. Thank you, Jamie. Let's go back to Katie for least favorite and least favorite part of your job.
Well, let's see. I kind of have two most favorite parts. My one is I really enjoy the way that my job involves working with a lot of different people in a lot of different areas of the company. So I work with, I work with QA, PM, software developers, that's all technical people. But then I also work with, my company has a really large number of people who are on the phones. So like when our clients are using the software, they're like, how the heck does this work? I can't get this darn thing to work. They call and say, hey, I need help. We actually have people in our office who answer the phone and are like, hey, here's how this works. That's support. And I work really closely with those guys too, because they know what the clients are having trouble with. So I really enjoy kind of the making connections across different areas of my company and getting to sort of like work with lots of different people. I'm very social and I really enjoy kind of the aspect of interacting with lots of different people. The other thing that I find super satisfying is when I write a page that I've worked really hard on. Sometimes, it'll take me days or even weeks to put together the document in a particular feature. And when it's done, I really have it like completely polished and beautiful. And then, we press the button and it goes out and it's live. And then we're able to get client feedback. And sometimes our clients will give my pages a thumbs up and they'll be like, this page was helpful. And when I see that, I know, I put so much work into this page. My goal is to answer people's questions, right? I want you to not get frustrated using our product because I want to be able to clearly describe how the thing works. And so when people read what I wrote and give it a thumbs up, and then I see that, it actually is really, really exciting for me because I'm able to say, whoa, all my hard work, like kind of like what Jamie was saying, I put a ton of work into it and I actually see the result. It really helped somebody be able to solve their problem. And it's really exciting to be able to kind of meet people's needs that way, to directly make it sort of more useful.
Thank you. Can you go back? There were two PM and QA. What do those stand for in your organization?
Right, sorry. PM stands for project manager. They're the people who kind of describe what the new feature is supposed to be doing. They write down all the stuff and that's my starting place to try to understand it. And then QA is quality assurance. These are people whose job it is to check the feature as it's built, and they basically try to break it, and then they write down how they broke it, and then the developer people get to come back and be like, okay, if somebody clicks this exact series of buttons or put this exact set of inputs in, then we'll fix it. And so that's what Q does, is they're basically trying to break it and then write down how they broke it so that in the future, when we really make the product go live, our clients won't be able to have it break in that circumstance.
Thank you. Let's go back to Julian. Favorite and least favorite part of your job?
Well, I definitely can say the favorite part of the job is when I go to a school, I have all my equipment set up, we start the workshop, and students just start asking questions, and we start diving in, and I can see the little light bulbs going on over their head and learning stuff about electricity and renewables and different things about appliances and voltage, wattage, ask me all kinds of great questions. So right then I feel great. It makes me feel really good. And it's what I love about my job. My least favorite, I guess, would be after I do those workshops, I have to record everything we did in the workshop. I need to put how many students were in the classrooms, how many classes I did, because our VEEP is a nonprofit. I don't know how many of you know what a nonprofit is. I don't even know I know what a nonprofit is. It means we get money from somebody else. So we get money from something called Efficiency Vermont. So the people who pay my salary, who pay for us to go to schools, for all the equipment, they need to see what we've done. So I have to record everything. So I guess it's not that bad, but it's really my least favorite thing. And that's usually at the end of 2 weeks. That's when I'm scrambling to get done, to make sure it gets all logged in correctly. And emailing with teachers and going back and forth with teachers is fine. You know, sometimes I see a lot, I open it up, I see a lot of email. Well, I don't know, many jobs that don't see a lot of emails anymore, but you open it up and you see all these emails and I'm like, all right, I just have to get through it. I know it's a great thing to be well organized and have everything ready before I go into the classrooms, don't get anything up in the air. So that part is, it's okay. You know, it's just something you have to do. But working with the students, teaching, showing them equipment, seeing what they're noting, hearing their questions, and yeah, that's the best part.
Thank you, Julian. Katie, I just realized, did we hear what your least favorite part of your job was, or should we skip it?
Oh yeah. I have to say my least favorite part is I have to attend a few meetings that are just really, really boring. And I have to be there, I have to attend, but I'm just sitting there going, all right, I'll get back to work after this. That's probably my least favorite part, to be honest. Oh no, there's another thing I have to do that I really don't like, and it's called link checking. After I create my page, I have to go check everything on it to make sure that it's accurate. So think about like on any web page, you know, if you have links to other pages or whatever, I have a ton of those. So I have to open up every single one of my pages and click all the links and make sure they go to the right place, make sure all the pictures are in the right place and all this stuff. And sometimes I have like 500 or 600 pages I have to check in one evening, and it can take hours and it's super boring and not my favorite part, but necessary. Got to do it.
Thank you. Anna, favorite and least favorite part of your job?
So I'll start with least favorite, I think, because what Julian was describing was interesting. So I also work for a nonprofit, and we have lots of counselors who go out into schools and work with students, and they love doing that. And then when they're done working with that student, they have to go back to their computer and write all the stuff that they just did, just like what Julian's explaining. That is not my job, but I'm the one in the office making sure they do that. And I'm the one, if that system isn't set up well, like if Julian has to enter what he just did with students, but the system that he has to use is clunky, or maybe he has to pick different, like I did this today or this today, and neither of those is true, but they're the only options. When that kind of thing happens in my company, I'm the one who hears about it because I'm the one who helps design what those options are, like the different activities you pick that you can say you did with the students in our database. I'm the one making the definitions for what those things are. So whenever there's a problem, I don't like that. The information I need is stuff that counselors I work with don't really like reporting. It's the least favorite part of their job. And I'm the person like, I know you hate it, but we really need the data. So that's not fun. Sometimes I have to be the bad guy. Like I'm not getting them in trouble, but I'm the one setting up the system that they don't like to use. I try to make that system as good as be so that it's easy for them to use and they can do it faster, spend more time doing the parts of their job they like. And that's a related thing is what I really love about my job is when you've spent a lot of effort to collect a bunch of data and you finally get to the point where you've got the data back and you get to analyze and find out what it told you. Like you get to discover the answer. So you asked all these questions and you finally get to learn the answer. So whether it's like, did we meet our goal of serving this many students, or we have certain targets like 65% of our students enroll in college after complete our program, something like that. I don't remember the exact number, but when we find out whether we met our target, or when we find out what students think are important, whatever question we were asking, find the answer, that moment where I get to learn if we actually answered our question and if we predicted it right, that sort of thing. I love getting the data back and finally getting to analyze it and see the answer. The thing about working in a nonprofit with humans, especially students, is I'm kind of a perfectionist. I love perfect, well-controlled data, and I don't have that in this job. So if I were doing research like in a lab, I would be able to set things up in a very specific way. But when I'm studying, when I'm working with data from Vermont students, we have a lot more constraints. So we have limits on the sorts of questions we can ask and the sorts of data we can collect. So my data is messier, which, you know, it's okay. I learned to live with it, but I love perfect data.
Thanks, Anna. Are there any follow-up questions from that round of responses, or I will move on to the next question? Panelists, you're doing great. Thank you so much. So the next question is, and you can kind of interpret it as you like, and I'll put it in the chat, but how does your work, or how do you see your work making a difference in the community? And then the second part to the question is, how can the next generation entering the workforce, I'm guessing, how could you see them making a difference maybe in your field in the community? Like where is it going? So Anna, you're on the screen. If you're ready, I'll let you start.
So because I work for a nonprofit, the goal of our organization is to help Vermonters achieve their educational goals. And I work on a grant called Gear Up that works directly with students who are from backgrounds that make it a little bit harder for them to get to college for various reasons, to get education and training after high school. So my job is very much about making sure that, first of all, trying to make our program better so that it is more successful, so we can help students more effectively, which has very real consequences for, you know, the students in Vermont and for our program. So I'm working to improve a program that's already doing great stuff for students. And the other thing is that the more boring parts of my job, like tallying the numbers and reporting them to the government, that is important because the government gives us the money that we use to help the students. So by doing the boring parts of my job, I am helping to make sure that we keep our grant, which means the government continues giving us money. So if I did my job really badly, we could lose how much our grant is, like a few $1 million a year that we're using to help these students. So that would be a lot of money that now we wouldn't get anymore. So my job is important in that way. It has very real consequences. If I mess up, we can't keep doing this work, at least not for this particular program. Oh, and the second part, the next generation entering the workforce. I don't really know how to answer that. I mean, I think from what I see of the next generation and how the students are, they really seem to care about making the world a better place. So as long as there are more people like that and they're doing the best to use their skills to try to make the world a better place, whether it's through data and science or some other field, just go with that, and I'm sure they'll be able to make a difference. You just have to find what works for you, like how to use your skill set. You wouldn't think it's a little hard to use math and data directly make the world a better place, but if it's to keep a grant funded so that it keeps doing its thing, and whatever it's doing is a thing, then that's kind of how I'm using my skill set.
Thanks, Anna. Julian, are you ready to go with this question?
Sure. Yeah. So as soon as you said the question, I looked back at Veep's mission statement. Do you guys know what a mission statement is? It's an overall statement about what you're trying to do. And ours is to build a deep understanding of energy through education, encouraging choices that result in sustainability in our communities, economy, and environment. So how do we affect the community? What I take pleasure in thinking that I teach the students about energy. We're thirsty for energy. We like our energy. So we talk about electricity and how we get our electricity. We talk about transportation and what are out there. We talk about heating and how to keep our houses warmer without using more energy. And hopefully that puts a spark in students that no matter what I do, I can always kind of think about efficiency, conservation, and renewables as part of my job or part of my daily life. So I like to think that's kind of how I affect the community at large, is by planting the seeds of you don't always have to do things in the same way. You can do things in a different way and use less energy doing it. So it's kind of, that's basically what I think. And then the second part of the question, which I completely forgot, is how can the next generation entering the workforce make a difference on the job? Well, I guess along those lines, as long as you think that, well, whatever I'm doing, how is it going to affect the next generation and the next generation and the next generation? Thinking 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ahead of, well, how what I'm doing now, how does it make a difference in there? So hopefully my job helps them think a little bit about the energy aspect of that. It might be just a small part of a job, or it could be a rather large part of the job. Hopefully they're thinking about that angle of it.
Thanks, Julian. Katie, we'll come back to you.
Okay. So how does my work make a difference in the community, and how can the next generation entering the workforce make a difference on the job? So I'm as a technical writer at a software company that writes financial software, but think bigger when you hear technical writer, because technical writing is a field where you fundamentally, our job is to take a technical concept and translate it into understandable words that regular people don't need a special degree to understand. And that skill and that job is critical as our world gets increasingly technical. And interesting because on the one hand, you know, there's usually when you use software, for example, you kind of intuitively just like try playing with it, and a well-designed software, you can kind of figure it out without ever having to look anything up. But there's still a huge need for helping people understand like the concept of a thing. So for example, in Jamie's work, you know, he is working with in biomedical, and there's going to be a need for, he mentioned he hates writing those reports. Well, I had a job where my first job was writing reports for companies that did medical testing for new medicines. And so you need to have this ability to basically think like technical and then translate it into non-technical. And that skill is going to be super important because it's not a huge number of people who can kind of move smoothly between those two areas. And so my job on a day-to-day basis makes a difference for a fairly small number of people. They're professional financial advisors who give advice to people about how to invest their money and make good financial choices. But then that ripples out. All these people who are making better financial choices are now able to, you know, save for buy a home, or save to be able to pay for their kids to go to college, or, you know, all sorts of important sort of life things like that. Be able to, you know, repair their car when it breaks down. And so it all comes back to my job helping people understand, okay, how do I use the software to effectively manage people's money to give them that ability to make those choices. And then as far as the next generation entering the workforce, you guys sort of have more of an intuitive understanding of how a lot of technology works. So you're all primed to be great technical writers. You can think in a technical way, and then it just sort of naturally comes with using technology in the way that we do today. So I think that there's a lot of room for understanding how new technology works and how we can use it to make everybody's lives better in the future. And that's where, again, technical writers can help translate from the nitty gritty of the thing into kind of the big picture for everybody. I think that's what I got on that one.
I like it. Thank you. And Jamie, we will wrap up with your answer to this question.
Okay, thanks, Jessica. So yeah, community means a few things for me. Local community, you know, each of our new products that we introduce has, we've been fortunate, have been very successful, and that's led to a lot of job growth in the area. We are always actively hiring. We've been doing very successful. In the global community, our products, you know, help unlock the mysteries of life and develop new therapies and vaccines. So that's kind of exciting, the impact that this has globally. As far as the next generation, how they can make a difference, I just want to say, you know, the job is not just a list of tasks. It's working with humans and fellow coworkers who have sorts of challenges in their life, you know, personal challenges and whatnot. You have to have the skills to be able to work with people collaboratively. And I think, you know, one of the good exposures, I just want to give a plug to FIRST Robotics. I'm involved with the FIRST Robotics pretty heavily. You know, that's a good little microcosm of what it might look like in a career in STEM, because you have to work with a group, you have to come up with a plan, and, you know, make your robot and test your robot and compete. And that's a good, I don't know if you guys have opportunities to get involved in that, but that's a good one where you can, you know, get more prepared for entering a career in STEM and get some firsthand exposure to that. That's
Cool, thanks,
it,
Jamie. Do you want to, Jamie, can you type that in the chat, the robotics?
Yeah, sure, I do. Let me see, I think it's, let me get the website here properly.
Okay.
Yeah, I was wondering if people wanted, I can throw the BioTek website page in there too. Kind of
Okay.
Products.
Yeah, and then I wanted to throw it back to Julian. Julian, if the middle schoolers are interested in learning more about your program, coming to their school or getting their teachers connected to you, how does that happen to learn more about energy?
Well, yeah, I can definitely put it in the chat. So you can always look at veep.org, veep.org, and that has all the things we offer to schools and to students. Right now, I'm actually in the process of developing a virtual STEM lab. So working with students over the computer. So starting next week, I'm starting a class called Electricity, from the electron to the iPad. So it's a 4-week class that I probably will be doing again in January, that we send out a little package equipment, and students learn the different phases from static electricity to circuits to electromagnetism to the grid. So I'm doing a class each 1 hour a week. So I'll start that next Tuesday, and I have I think about 10 students signed up for that. So I'll be doing those STEM classes. They're generally geared towards homeschoolers, but anybody's interested in electricity can take that. And also the students can tell the teachers that we've tried to recreate our workshops as best we can in a virtual format. So most of the stuff that we do, we have it on .org, that you can just take these virtual resources and use them in your classrooms. and they usually have embedded videos and worksheets and activities to do. So definitely can use that at veep.org. Please feel free. That would be wonderful.
Cool, thank you. Well, we are at time, and so I just want to thank our panelists for their time and yeah, willingness just to share your thoughts and experiences. It was great. I'm going to put in the chat the link you can go to for the event webpage so that you can go see, you can watch this panel again, you can watch other panels, but those should be up in the next couple of days. But that concludes this year's Vermont Career Connect, and you can just go ahead and go to leave meeting or leave room when you're ready to. But thank you so much, and thank you to all of our attendees, especially for your questions.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Everybody else.
Thank you.
Science, is health science over, or is this person still trying to get in there? No, it looks like it's over.
Anna, can I talk to you? This is happening. Oh wait, stop record. Stop.